Welcome to today's episode of Feeding the Wolf of Possibilities. Today, we're exploring what it takes to create a thriving global business consciously. As our guide, I've invited Mr. Gary Douglas, a brilliant and tenacious business leader on the constant creative edge. He's also the founder of Access Consciousness, a company founded 30 years ago on the principles of consciousness, where everything is included and nothing is judged. So what is consciousness? How do we use it? What is behind its transformative power? And what would change if we allowed consciousness to infuse every part of our lives? What would change in the world if you, me, and everyone choose to feed the wolf of possibilities instead of the one of doubt, distrust, and despair? The way I see it, our point of view creates reality, not the other way around. Somewhere deep within, I think we know that. In this podcast, I am daring you to claim this remarkable superpower. Join us and be inspired by trackers, explorers, and finders of possibilities from the multiverse of hope. Welcome to the podcast, Feeding the Wolf of Possibilities, with your host, Katrina Valentin. Welcome, Gary.
Thank you.
Let's just start with what is consciousness? What is it really?
Consciousness includes everything and judges nothing.
A lot of people seem to think that somehow consciousness is related to spirituality or something similar to that.
I was involved in the spiritual search, and what I noticed is the spiritual people were always in judgment of those that didn't agree with them. And it's like, if you have to have everybody agree with you, is that consciousness or is that something else? But if it has judgment involved in it, it can't be consciousness.
When Access Consciousness started, judgment wasn't one of the key things from the beginning. Is that correct?
Yeah, it was, it's like we had people who wanted to do judgment of us. And they were saying that we were not being spiritual. And I go, but I'm not trying to be spiritual. I'm trying to be conscious. And I want to include everything. See, it's like if you realize that judgment is included in consciousness, then judgment doesn't have the power over you that judgment is given. And power over others is the judgment that people use to control people. I personally don't want to control people. I have enough work to control my own life, let alone trying to control somebody else's.
So can you talk a little bit more about why does judgment control you?
Well, it's like people try to avoid judgment. If you're avoiding judgment, are you being aware or are you cutting off anything that doesn't match the judgment you have? And that's what I see people doing is, if their judgment doesn't match, then they're considered separate and different. It's like you align and agree with somebody, that's judgment. If you resist and react to somebody, that's judgment. If you're in allowance of somebody, they can have a different point of view and you don't have a point of view about their point of view. And that's consciousness and choice.
So can you actually get consciousness right? And can you get consciousness wrong?
You can't get consciousness wrong. You can't get it right, but you can get it. And getting it is recognizing, okay, interesting point of view. I have this point of view about any point of view you have. One of the things I did was almost a full year of interesting point of view. I have this point of view to every point of view that I thought I had. And I discovered that 99,000% of my points of view were not even mine. I was more psychic and more aware than I'd ever thought. And I was using that to determine what I could judge and what was appropriate to judge and what wasn't appropriate to judge, which is a judgment.
Well, so is consciousness then a way to get to what is true for you?
Sort of. No. Yes.
No. Yeah.
Okay. Do the birds sing because it's a good day, or do they sing because they can?
Yeah, because they can.
Because they can. And the thing is, I look at the animals and the plants and stuff. I mean, the plants grow no matter how crazy we are. The plants grow no matter how much you cry, unless you cry on their root system and then poison them with your salt. But the thing is like plants grow, sun shines, air blows. All of these things are part and parcel of what is consciousness. Consciousness is every single solitary molecule in the planet, on the planet, has consciousness in it. We have a tendency to think that certain things are bad and certain things are good. And if you function from the bad and the good of things, you're not actually present with it. You're you're functioning from a place of judgment.
Mm.
Which one is going to create the most for you? Judgment or choice?
So one of the things that has been becoming more and more apparent for me is how the tools of consciousness have this amazing capacity to cross any kind of border. It could be cultural, geographical, religious. What is that? What is it that makes it so unstoppable?
Because if you're in total allowance of somebody being who they are, then they will never have the sense that they are not okay. How many times have you been made to feel that you're not okay?
Yeah,
You're
all the
not good
time.
enough. You're not enough. I mean, most relationships, it's about how you're not enough. You're not good enough. You're not bad enough. You're not whatever. But it's always about not enough. And it's like if you were always enough and you were always more than other people could handle, what would you be? A judgeable offense or an unjudgeable offense?
So it's actually then borders in relationships, whatever kind it is, all created from judgment.
Yes. What if there's something greater? What if there's something more that's possible? What is actually possible is the question and the choice. If you function from question, choice shows you the possibilities of all things and then gives you the contribution, gives you the contribution that the world is willing to be for you and do for you.
And that functions independent on what kind of situation or society you grow up in.
Yes. And that bypasses the stability of society.
Well, you often say that you're not here for the people, you're here for the planet.
I am, because if with consciousness, you would not destroy your planet. You know, I mean, consciousness, it'd be obvious that this is going to destroy. And you'd ask a question, is this going to expand or destroy my planet? You know, it's like I watch people do things all the time that are destructive to the planet. I was amused because during COVID and the shutdown of, the pandemic, it's like rhinos came back into the streets of places in South Africa. The streets, they were on the streets because people weren't out. You had monkeys who came into the cities in Southeast Asia because the people weren't around. They had coyotes that came into downtown San Francisco because people weren't around. People are a really great thing. Now, they eliminate the rest of the ecology of possibility with everything. It's like they had flocks of flamingos that came back to Venice that had not been there for years. They had dolphins in the canals in Venice. They had fish that they could see in the things in Venice because there was so little traffic that it didn't churn up the bottom and make the waters murky and muddy. So all kinds of things showed up, all kinds of critters showed up, all kinds of choices showed up, and a whole universe opened up again. We went back 6 months in the ecological destruction of our planet because of COVID, minimum. And we are in a place where we could actually get real if we just took 6 months off a year and didn't do all the things we do. What difference could we make if we were willing to be more conscious about what the choices made? If you ask what will this create every time you made a choice, you will begin to see where you can choose and where you can't choose.
So this whole where you're willing to be aware of how everything is interconnected and on a whole different level. And I also know that when you look at choices, you look much further in the future than most people do. How did you start doing that? Like, how did you start getting that sense of that choice actually can be 500 years in the future? Like, what effect will it have there, and how it will affect, all the different things that are connected to the one little thing that you make the choice about?
Well, I started reading about other cultures, and one of the things they had was the Japanese came up with a system of predicting the future for 500 years. Okay. And what they did is they, it's like, and the Chinese bought up forests in the United States, and they discovered if they took the wood that's freshly cut, and before it has time to dissipate all the sap and stuff, and they put it in the ocean, it will come to the surface, and then barnacles will form over it. So the Chinese have massive amounts of wood in the water waiting for the time when there's no wood, so they can pull it up and use it to make wood when wood's needed. And this is a different point of view. And everybody else is trying to look at, well, what's this going to create?
Well, one of the things that I noticed is how you continuously extrapolate from everything. And it's nearly like you don't only extrapolate yourself, you also extrapolate through other people. Can you talk a little bit about that particular capacity? How can one develop it, or is it something that just comes?
We all have. It's what creates us as inventive, as creative, as unique. It's the uniqueness that most of us have that most of us won't let ourselves have. And it's like extrapolation is the ability to take from this point of view over here, and this point of view over here, and this point of view up here, and this one up there, and this one down there, and this one down there, and put together something that's unique, that is valuable. And it's like, and nature functions that way. Nature functions by pulling in the right critters at the right time. It's like I have a pond off of my bedroom, and I love fish, and I wanted to be able to watch the fish on my pond. So I created the pond with copper because it was cool. And I discovered that copper takes out so many elements of disease that the plants die because they're not getting all the nutrients they need from how water really works. And I learned from it. And I took the copper and I had it covered with mosaic tile that was copper colored, so that it would still have the color, but I wouldn't have the same effect as the copper. And it was interesting because I tried putting fish in it when I had just the copper lining before the plants died. And the fish all went belly up within a few days. And I went, how come this is happening? And I started researching. I found out, you can't use copper because it kills too many of the microbes that help the fish. We have a bigger ecological system than we know. And I try to do business as an ecology, an ecological system, so that all people do better and all people grow and all people have more money and all people have more everything. It's a different world from my perspective. And we need to have the ecology of our business, not the profit of our business. We spend too much time looking for the profit and not enough time for the ecology of what will make it grow and what will make it sustainable forever.
So with all the things that we've been talking about, how come the tools of consciousness so provocative for some people?
Because it challenges their status quo. And you've spent your life learning from your family, this is the right way. What if there was no right way? And what if the only difference between right and wrong was your decision? The birds don't go, okay, you made me unhappy yesterday, so I'm not going to sing today. They don't do that.
Well, you often in classes, you will say things that would be considered, politically incorrect or irreverent. I can never say that word.
Irreverent. Yes, I'm very
Yeah,
irreverent. I'm
you
very,
are.
I'm very
So
not
what,
politically correct.
so what is being created by that?
It's like it forces people to choose to change or to look in a different way or to keep their point of view. And I don't care which they do, as long as they know what's true for them.
Well, you often say that you have no desire to be a guru and you have no desire to have followers.
Definitely not.
So the way you built the business of access consciousness, could you talk a little bit about how you actually choose to create it in a way where you're not a guru?
Well, first of all, I do my best to hire people that are smarter than me. Most people hire people that they like, not people that actually will do more for the business. And it's like I look at people that know more than I do in one area. They may not know more in every area, but if they know more in this area, why am I not hiring? I can't be an expert at everything. But most people don't do that. They hire people who are less than they are so they can control them and feel in charge. When you do that, you're actually ensuring the demise of your business. I
So,
want people who are smarter than me so they can show me better ways of doing things.
and that somehow seems like an ecological system as well,
It is.
because that's how nature functions.
Yes. It's like I learned years ago that horses, stallions, when they fight, the only reason they're fighting is to see who's fastest, because the only thing a horse can do is fight or flight in nature. So it's like when they're like, I had a friend who had three stallions that had grown up together, and she had them in the same pasture, and they ate together and they lived together and they played together and they would fight together. But the fighting is, they did fighting to play slap hands, as the lady put it. She said, what they're trying to do is see who's fastest, who can bite the fastest, who can, manipulate things the fastest, who can create something that's greater. And that's how they determine who is the stallion that is dominant. Because in nature, the dominant stallion is the one that breeds with everybody, and that makes every horse in the herd faster so they can get away from the predators. Different world, a different reality. There's also a hierarchy in a herd. There's the stallion who is the protector of the herd and sits at top of a hill and watches everything and knows what's going on. Then there's the alpha mare who tells them when to go and how to go and where to go. She leads the thing. So I try to hire alpha mare women to work for me, to work with me, because they work with me, they don't work for me. Nobody works for me because I don't like to give orders and I don't like to give directions. I want everybody to fucking create the greatest life they can possibly have.
So we're getting to the end of the podcast, and I'm wondering about how many people it would take to choose to be conscious to really change the face of the planet.
10,000, and we finally reached that.
So what occurred when we reached that?
Asking for not politicians, but statesmen. And now we're seeing the politicians are so friggin' obvious. Unfortunately, the population is so friggin' stupid that they will vote for the politician based on the level of popularity there is, and not based on what will be the greatest result. And we are seeing, around the world, the political systems are like falling apart. But they should fall apart because they've been politically oriented for too long. Now they need to be statesman oriented. The last time that we were statesman oriented was in the 17 and 1800s.
Well, so would you say that the world is getting kind of more stupid? It's seemingly more stupid while actually more conscious.
Well, it's like there's more consciousness, but it's like the stupidity is more blatant as a result of it. The more you have consciousness, the more stupid it is obvious that it's stupid when things are stupid. And it's like, it's just an amazing gift, I think, to have it happen. And, we ask for a lot of things to change and for there to be true justice. And now we are having more interest in justice. People are looking for something that makes better sense than what we currently have. And that's awesome.
So the 10,000 in consciousness actually increased the demand and the question from people for something different.
Yes. And it's happening. And there are people that are just amazing.
Okay, so if you could ask people listening to this to just use one of the tools of consciousness, what would that be?
Question. The question will lead you to the different choices you have. The choice you make, what will it create? And what is that going to create? And ask the question again, and then go for what you can, what can you receive and what can you contribute and what contribution can you receive? A different possibility.
Thank you so much, Gary, for coming on and taking us on this journey into the ecology of consciousness.
Thank you, dear one. You're awesome.
Thank you so much for listening to my podcast, Feeding the Wolf of Possibilities. I hope you have more space in your world now. If you would like to listen to earlier episodes, share with other people, or subscribe, please go to Spotify, iTunes, or visit KatarinaValentin.com/wolf.